Hello and welcome to Stories of Science. Here, we look back on humanity's long journey to understand the world. The questions, the failures, and the breakthroughs that slowly changed how we see the universe and ourselves. We tell science as stories. He turned ordinary cells into anything, the discovery that rewrote life itself. Can you imagine this? A doctor taking ordinary cells and turning them into something with almost unlimited potential. Not magic, no wand, no spellbook, and yet, the cells obey him. Picture this: your cells are like a bunch of unruly kids, running around, fighting, breaking things, total chaos, and somehow, he gets them to sit down, quietly, perfectly behaved. When scientists first saw the result, it felt like opening your bank app and seeing the balance read, infinity, yeah, infinite. So naturally, people asked, how is that even possible? Who did this? His name is Shinya Yamanaka, born in 1962, in Osaka. No silver spoon, no celebrity family, just an ordinary household. But he was anything but ordinary. As a kid, he didn't just play with toys, he dismantled them. Other kids built Lego. He took Lego apart, other kids raced toy cars. He cracked them open to see what was inside. He had one question on repeat: what's really going on in there? Curiosity. Everywhere. All the time. Steam rising from the kitchen? He'd stare at it and wonder, where do the water molecules go? Ants in the yard. He'd crouch for hours, tracking their tiny migration routes. Other families asked, what's for dinner? His family asked, why are the ants moving today? While others watched TV, he watched cells divide under a microscope. His parents thought he was unusual, but they didn't shut him down. His father once said, if you can understand ants, one day you'll understand the world. His mother just smiled and added, I just hope he understands dinner too. School didn't slow him down. Math problems? Easy. Biology experiments? He'd dive in, dirt on his hands, no hesitation. Teachers explained formulas, he wondered what secrets were hiding behind them. And when things went wrong, he didn't quit. Model falls apart, no problem. Next time, I'll make the parts cooperate. Experiment fails, the cells just aren't ready yet. That mindset stuck. He questioned everything, not because he was a genius, but because he was willing to try, not because he knew the answers, but because he refused to stop asking. Weekends looked different for him. Neighbors kept playing with yarn. He studied its movements, rain dripping from the roof. He tracked the pattern. Other kids played games. He ran experiments. Other kids made noise. He practiced patience. People laughed, called him weird. He laughed too. I'm just training early to be a scientist. His bookshelf wasn't full of comics. It was filled with worn-out science books, cells, molecules, life itself. Others dreamed of video games. He dreamed of microscopes. That curiosity? It burned like a spark. It taught him to see opportunity in failure. To observe in the smallest details: dirt, ants, steam, droplets. To question, always. Don't underestimate that. An ordinary boy from Osaka, quietly learning how to take the world apart and understand it. No magic, but he was already practicing his own kind of scientific magic. And that curiosity? It never left him. Years later, he would turn ordinary cells into something extraordinary. He would shock the world. His name would become tied to one of the biggest breakthroughs in modern science. They say, great oaks from little acorns grow. And this was one very curious acorn. Then came university. Kyoto University. Medical school. New city. New lab. New challenges. For most students, college meant freedom, parties, relaxation. For him, it was a scientific playground. Textbooks were filled with formulas. Others memorized them. He raised his hand and asked, do cells ever lie? The professor paused, then smiled. Classmates whispered, is this guy a genius, or just crazy? Truth is, he was just intensely curious. In the lab, while others played it safe, he pushed limits. Microscopes, used to the extreme, test tubes, turned into mini inventions. In biochemistry class, he even snuck in kitchen ingredients to run side experiments. Others took notes. He kept records, not just data, but what he called the mood of cells. His mentor noticed. Didn't always understand his questions, but one thing was clear: this student wasn't afraid of failure or complexity. That's where real research begins. While others were still figuring things out, he was already training patients in the lab. One day, he misadjusted a sink setup, chemicals splashed everywhere. Great! Experiment ruined, someone groaned. He just laughed. Relax. The cells are just having fun. That was him. Calm, playful, resilient. Then came more ambitious experiments. From kitchen tinkering to real lab work, from simple observation to complex manipulation. His first self-designed experiment? Total confidence going in. And then boom. More smoke than birthday candles, so the lab smelled like a failed fireworks show. Experiment failed, beakers shattered, reagents everywhere. Everyone else looked defeated. He smiled. Well, next time, let's make the cells behave. To him, failure wasn't a wall. It was a tool. Another time, he tried to accelerate cell division in a culture. Instead, chaos. Under the microscope, the cells looked like they were throwing a party. He rubbed his eyes, then carefully recorded every misbehavior. Others saw wasted time. He saw the beginning of a new pattern. Because sometimes, as the saying goes, failure is the mother of success. He didn't just study experiments. He studied people too. A classmate rushing through procedures, he wondered about the underlying principles. Someone shaking from stress, he asked himself, could pressure affect cellular behavior? Even in the cafeteria, he couldn't switch it off. Food acidity, temperature, molecular structure of seasoning, everything could spark an idea. His life was one big experiment. Weekends, library, or organizing notes, winter break. Back home, experimenting in the kitchen again. His parents finally understood. All that mess. It wasn't chaos. It was training. Slowly, his reputation spread. People noticed this guy who asked strange questions always came back stronger after failure. Professors saw it too. Others looked at data. He looked at trends, others focused on results. He studied the process. First round of failures? No panic. Smoke-filled lab, just fireworks practice. Spilled culture medium, let's try again. Maybe the cells will cooperate this time. Again and again, he tested, failed, learned. Each failure brought him closer. Someone once asked him, "Don't you get tired?" He grinned, as sure. But it's way more fun than watching other people play games. That passion quietly built his future. From kitchen to lab, his experiments became sharper and bolder. Failure wasn't the enemy. It was part of the game. Smoke, foam, unexpected results, each one a lesson. Some people saw a madman. He saw the joy of science. And slowly, something clicked. It wasn't just experiments he loved. It was discovery, solving puzzles, turning the unknown into the known. That seed planted in childhood, it had started to grow. All those small moments, failed tests, smoky kitchens, mini fireworks, they were laying the foundation. When he left Kyoto University, he didn't just carry a degree. He carried a method. Question, observe, try, fail, try again. And that method would soon lead to a breakthrough that changed everything. What we now call iPS cells. For most people, science feels serious, formal, almost sacred. For Shinya Yamanaka, it felt more like a game. Experiments failed? That wasn't a setback. That was entertainment. Smoke rising higher than birthday candles, he'd grin and say, "Well, looks like we've got a scientific fireworks show." Reagents spilled all over the floor, no problem. Next time, we'll teach the cells some manners. People were shocked. He stayed calm. Because to him, failure wasn't defeat, it was data. His curiosity didn't switch off. Ever. Cells in the lab. Microbes under the microscope. Liquids in test tubes. Even water molecules floating in the air, he wanted to understand all of it. Weekends? Others went shopping. He tweaked culture media in the lab. Winter break? Others played games. He studied yeast fermentation in his kitchen. In his world, everyday life was just another lab. And then there was his defining trait, resilience. Some people fail once and give up. He could fail 100 times and still lean in closer. Every setback sharpened him. People said, he's crazy. He said, no. This is training. They said, he's weird. He replied, that's how you discover new things. And here's the twist, his secret weapon wasn't just persistence. It was humor. While others' hands shook under pressure, he joked, honestly, the cells look more nervous than we are. While others stared anxiously at data, he'd say, careful. Data can lie too. Every failed experiment, every unexpected result. He found something to enjoy. Because humor does something powerful, it dissolves pressure, and in its place, creativity shows up. Slowly, his scientific style took shape. Careful observation, flexible thinking, fearless experimentation. Others repeated procedures. He asked, why does this happen? Others looked at results. He studied the process, the trends, the anomalies, the tiny details. His notes were legendary. Not just numbers, but stories. Every data point, every accident, every weird outcome a clue for the future. Science wasn't separate from life for him. At meals, he thought about temperature and pH. While exercising, he noticed muscle contractions. On rainy days, he tracked how droplets moved across leaves. Others played games. He played with cells, microbes, molecules. Different playground, same joy. His resilience, humor, and relentless curiosity fused into something rare. For others, research felt like a battlefield. For him, it was a playground. Failure wasn't discouraging, it was just the next level unlocking. As the saying goes, every cloud has a silver lining. He just happened to see the lining faster than most. Over time, this mindset became his signature. No matter how complex the experiment, no matter how rebellious the cells, he could break the problem down. Simplify it. Humor kept things light, resilience kept him going, curiosity kept him moving forward. That combination slowly transformed him from an ordinary student into someone the scientific world couldn't ignore. Because when life and science merge like that, even failure becomes fuel. The lessons started early. Watching ants taught him observation, kitchen experiments taught him patience. Every moment, practice. And eventually, those traits, resilience, humor, curiosity, would give him the power to change the world. Not just through skill, but through attitude. Because sometimes, what looks like a small, silly curiosity is actually the starting point of a revolution. That was his style. When he stepped into the lab, he had one goal: understand life itself. Not casually. Not let's see what happens. He wanted answers. Why do cells accept their fate? Why can't they become anything they want? Then came 2006. And everything changed. A normal body cell isn't a stem cell. It has one job: skin cells make skin. Blood cells make blood. That's it. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. So what did Shinya Yamanaka do? He rewrote the rules. He took ordinary cells and reshaped them like clay. A skin cell suddenly had the potential to become heart tissue, liver, even neurons. The scientific world? Shocked. In labs around the globe, reactions looked like someone checking their bank account and seeing infinity. This wasn't science fiction. This was happening under a microscope. Think of it like this. You're holding a piece of clay, you can mold it into anything. That's the idea behind iPS cells. So how did he do it? No magic. Just biology. He used gene regulation for key factors like a password unlocking a hidden mode. Turn the key and the cell says, all right, I can be anything. This wasn't just a cool experiment. It shattered a long-held belief that cells are fixed, irreversible. Yamanaka showed the world life can rewrite its own script. Every failed attempt, every smoky lab accident, they all pointed him here. And here's what made it even bigger. This method didn't rely on embryonic stem cells. No ethical controversies. No complicated sourcing. Just ordinary cells, reprogrammed. That changed everything. Regenerative medicine, drug development, disease modeling, organ transplants. One day, maybe no donors needed. Degenerative diseases? New paths opened. This wasn't just science. It was a shift in how we see life. Cells weren't rigid machines anymore, they were students capable of being retrained. Imagine a line of skin cells, patiently learning to become neurons. Sounds like magic, right? But this magic was built on experiments, failures, persistence. From kitchen tinkering, to lab chaos, to breakthrough, everything converged. Ordinary cells became extraordinary. The scientific community? Stunned. Medicine? Electrified. Researchers everywhere asked, how did he pull this off? And the answer was simple. He never stopped being curious. He took humor, patience, and resilience, and turned rigid biology into something flexible, like Lego bricks for life. That's the birth of iPS cells. Then came the grind. Not once, not twice, but again, and again, and again. Sometimes the cells behaved, sometimes they acted like unruly kids, completely ignoring the plan. In the dish? Bubbles. Strange growth. Unexpected changes. It looked like a microscopic party. Yamanaka would just nod, all right. You want to perform today? I'll watch. Colleagues were skeptical. This won't work. Aren't you exhausted from failing? He smiled. Look closely. The cells are doing magic tricks. Like a magician with a deck of cards, the cells played their own game under the microscope. Every failed experiment, he documented it. No complaints. No quitting. He became a detective, tracking every movement, every pattern, temperature, nutrients, gene factor ratios, tiny changes, huge consequences. His kitchen experiments paid off. That attention to detail, it helped him see what others missed. Smoke in the lab? Patterns, strange bubbles? Clues. Failure wasn't scary anymore. It was part of the training. One time, cells died off in large numbers. Others panicked. He shrugged. Well, looks like they clocked out early today. Then he adjusted conditions and tried again. This time, the cells behaved, dividing, growing, like trained performers. Breakthrough doesn't arrive in one moment. It builds quietly in repetition, in patience. And slowly, results appeared. iPS cells didn't just survive, they differentiated into multiple cell types. Skepticism turned into surprise, then into recognition. Colleagues admitted, so, it really works. He just smiled, I just paid attention. And that's when the impact began to spread. Drug testing using patient-specific cells, regenerative medicine evolving beyond old limits. From Tokyo to New York City, labs started exploring this new approach. Each repeated experiment, each failure a step forward, each magic trick from the cells, a hint of discovery, patience, humor, curiosity. That's how he found the key. And in the end, the breakthrough wasn't just his. It changed how science thinks. From cells are fixed, to cells can learn again. A completely new definition of life's potential. And he kept smiling, because for him, science never stopped being a game, a puzzle, a magic show, an adventure. Failure didn't matter. What mattered was this. What did you learn? iPS cells, the most successful magic trick he ever shared with the world. Then came 2012, a defining moment. Shinya Yamanaka stood on the Nobel stage. The world watched. The man who turned ordinary cells into something extraordinary. Medal in hand. Cameras flashing. Maybe, just maybe, he thought finally, I won't have to explain what iPS cells are anymore. Because people always asked, iPS? What's that? He'd smile and say, think of it like giving a cell an unlimited membership pass, it can become anything. iPS cells weren't just a lab miracle. They reshaped medicine, drug development, regenerative therapies, neurological research, heart disease. The future? Possibly growing organs from your own cells. No rejection, no waiting lists. The ripple effect spread. From Tokyo to New York. From labs to hospitals. iPS cells moved fast, like a good idea that refuses to stay contained. And scientists everywhere realized, cells aren't rigid machines. They're students. Trainable. Flexible. On that stage, he smiled. Calm. Focused. It wasn't just his victory. It belonged to every failed experiment. Every smoky lab. Every moment of doubt he refused to accept. He showed the world something simple: curiosity, patience, humor. That's enough to create miracles. Like watching ants as a kid, like experimenting in the kitchen. Small habits, big impact. As the saying goes, fortune favors the bold. And in his case, the curious, the patient, and the ones who aren't afraid to laugh at failure. And suddenly, treatments started to feel possible. Diabetes, heart disease, Parkinson's, the conditions that once could only be managed now had something new on the table: hope. iPS cells became the game changer. Think of them like the ultimate Lego set. A damaged organ? Rebuild it not with plastic bricks but with living cells, shaped and guided with precision. Scientists began turning these cells into heart tissue, neurons, liver cells, each one crafted with incredible accuracy. Now imagine this. Cells in your body that once had a single job: skin, blood, whatever, suddenly going back to school, learning a completely new role. Replacing what's broken, repairing what's lost. Hospitals of the future might not just prescribe medicine, they might run something closer to a cell repair factory. And inside you, every tiny cell could be a potential superhero. But it doesn't stop there. Drug development changed too. Instead of testing blindly, scientists can now use a patient's own iPS cells to test medications, predicting effects, spotting side effects early. Faster, safer, smarter. Quietly, the rules of medicine were rewritten. And as the saying goes, a small key can open a big door. This was one very small key with massive consequences. The ripple spread fast. Young scientists around the world saw something new: possibility. Students, PhDs, postdocs, all diving into iPS technology. When labs in Japan opened their doors, researchers lined up from across the globe. You could almost picture it: outside a lab in Tokyo, buzzing like a subway station at rush hour. Because this wasn't just about learning a technique. It was about a mindset. Ask questions, try things, fail boldly. Just like a kid watching ants move across the ground: tiny curiosity, massive impact. One ordinary person gets curious about cells, and suddenly, the entire world starts rethinking life itself. From Tokyo to New York City, from London to Singapore, labs everywhere began adopting iPS techniques. Ideas traveled fast. Breakthroughs in one country were replicated in another almost overnight. Science stopped being isolated. It spread like a virus. But the good kind. A virus of knowledge. Every experiment, every failure, every breakthrough pushing medicine closer to the future. And Shinya Yamanaka's influence went beyond science. He became a signal to younger generations. Curiosity matters, patience matters, even humor matters. Science wasn't some unreachable tower anymore. It became something you could touch, try, understand. iPS cells weren't just a tool. They became hope, education, a shared global dream. Every failed experiment, every small success, each one bringing us closer to a future where we can rebuild life itself. That's science, not abstract, not distant, but deeply woven into everyday life. Because science was never just formulas or cold cells under a microscope. It's tied to life, to thinking, to curiosity. For Shinya Yamanaka, life was where experiments began. Taking apart toys, watching ants, those tiny moments, they were seeds. Who would have guessed they'd grow into Nobel-level discoveries? As a child, he'd crack open motorized toys just to see how gears moved. Others saw a broken toy. He saw motion, structure, hidden rules. He watched ants not for fun, but to understand coordination and order. Because sometimes, science hides in plain sight. In the lab, that mindset never changed. Cells behaving? He recorded carefully. Cells acting wild? He laughed. Looks like you're putting on a magic show today. Patience, humor, curiosity, those were his real tools. Because here's the truth. Science doesn't follow your script. And that's exactly why it works. He didn't just experiment, he reflected. What is life? Why can it replicate, repair, adapt? If a tiny cell can reshape itself, maybe we can reshape the challenges in our own lives too. Science taught him patterns, life taught him patience, and how to laugh along the way. That's where the magic happens. His way of thinking spread across the scientific world. Not just techniques, but philosophy. Stay curious, ask questions, even the small ones, keep your sense of humor. Because sometimes, the smallest question leads to the biggest answer. A microscope, a kitchen experiment, a line of ants, any of them could be the start of something huge. That's how iPS cells were born. From a way of thinking. From the belief that life isn't fixed, that even the smallest unit, a cell, holds unlimited potential. Just like people. As the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. Science, life, and thought all came together in him. Humor made the journey lighter, curiosity kept it moving, patience made the impossible possible. Taking apart toys, watching ants, these weren't distractions. They were training, and his entire life proved it. Every experiment, every failure, every breakthrough, a form of philosophy in action. Because science isn't just about discovering rules. It's about understanding life, the world, yourself, and sometimes, a tiny moment of curiosity can move all of humanity forward. From an ordinary kid in Osaka to a scientist who changed the world, Shinya Yamanaka did it with curiosity, patience, and a sense of humor. He showed us something simple. Science isn't far away. It's right here in everyday life. Taking apart a toy, watching ants, running a small kitchen experiment, these ordinary moments, they might be the beginning of something extraordinary. You think you're just opening up a broken computer? Maybe. Or maybe, you're training your mind, your observation, your intuition. Every cell, every experiment, every failure, there's a lesson hiding inside. iPS cells weren't just a scientific breakthrough. They were a philosophy in action, a reminder. Curiosity, patience, humor, these are your best tools for exploring the unknown. Failure isn't the end. It's just the universe saying, not quite, try again. The line between science and life, it's thinner than you think. A steaming pot in your kitchen, a cultured dish in a lab. Different settings, same curiosity. Watch a plant grow, you're studying life's ability to repair itself. Fix a broken toy, you're learning structure and rules. He proved something powerful. Science isn't just formulas, not just metals, not just lab equipment. It's a way of thinking, a way of living, a way of facing the unknown. Curiosity can move the world, humor can keep you going, patience can turn the impossible into reality. So next time you take something apart, or pause to observe something small, don't brush it off. You might be running your own future Nobel experiment. You might be practicing how to make the world listen, just like he made cells listen. The universe doesn't hand out answers, it hides them. But someone always comes along and figures them out. He walked out of Osaka with curiosity and determination and turned complexity into clarity, turned the impossible into reality. So remember this: science isn't somewhere else. It's right beside you. Every question you ask, every attempt you make, every time you laugh at failure, that's a step forward. Open a book, take apart a toy, watch ants, any of these could be your entry point. Because his life tells us one thing: exploration isn't about showing off. It's about understanding, changing the world, and making life a little more interesting along the way. From a curious kid to someone who helped humanity rethink life itself. From the lab to real life. From curiosity to the Nobel Prize. From playful cell magic to a global scientific movement. Science is closer than you think. So the next time you doubt yourself, remember this: you might just be standing at the edge of your own breakthrough. The universe won't give you the answers, but someone always finds them. The people who change the world usually just think one step deeper. If this story made you see things differently, hit like, subscribe, and save it. See you in the next story.